Hello, badasses. Welcome to episode 5. Today, we're going to be talking a little different, a little bit about some mediumship. And I have a very good friend of mine here with me that I've worked with for a while. Her name is Costa. And Kathy,
Thank you for having me.
thank you
I've
for being here.
been looking forward to this though. Um, so I've been a psychic and a medium for a little while. So the journey's been interesting, to say the least. You brought me to places I never thought was possible, for sure. Um, so it's how how this stuff works is it's just not 100% how we think we interpret it. So I try to keep my mind out of it. So like whenever something comes up, it's like at least, hey, this lady was right. I'd rather have that though than it actually trying to make the pieces fit. So it makes sense to me.
I want to touch in a little bit for the audience, if I may, about where we're going with it, about the mediumship. And let's explain just a little for because this show, we're a little bit more about the coaching, but I want to introduce a little bit for the ones that are interested. So do you want to tell them a little bit about what we do because we both do it? Um, and I want you to kind of explain to them a little bit about the journey.
Okay, so, or you mean like how it got started for me?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, a little bit about your background with it, and even if you want to share some experiences, I think that'd be great.
Okay. Yeah, so I do have some classic ones that when I started, before I even started to read cards, because like I always knew there was like a little bit more than what I was taught when I was a kid. It just felt like there was something else happening. I can't quite put that into words. I just knew there was something more. Um, it was just like kind of like that pull when you want to learn something, like learn a new hobby. That's what it kind of felt
Right,
like.
right.
That interest toward it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I think I was in high school. So I was like 16, 17 at the time. And I was praying, though, because my family's very, very religious. Um, Luckily, most of them are very understanding. Some are not, but that happens. It's their path. I remember just like praying for like a reason because I needed something. Okay, so what do I do next? I don't understand where
The
my life is going.
understanding, correct. Yeah, I can attest to that as well. Not understanding why am I gifted or what is happening to me that makes some sense for me at
Yeah.
why I see this and other people don't, right?
Yeah.
Is that kind of where we're going with it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of like that though. So it's like, I had gone to a couple of different readers, some psychics, some mediums. There's a slight difference, but I mean, I do both though, so like they interweave at this point.
Yeah, and if I can chime in on that, you notice that all mediums are psychic, but not all psychics have mediumship ability.
Absolutely.
But usually they're intertwined for the
Yeah.
most. But
Yeah, because psychics though most of us see the past and the future. Sometimes the present though too. I know I see the present, but it doesn't always happen when I think it's happening.
right,
So I get that confused look from the client, like, oh, just give it a couple of weeks, though. We'll
Right.
see if it happens, you know.
Right.
And then the mediumship, it's like, oh, I can communicate with the loved ones that's are no longer with the physical with us. We still have the souls that's kind of hanging around,
yeah,
you know. So that took me a little bit to kind of figure out the difference for that, though. And like some of them, like I could tell though they were okay, because they were answering my questions, but not really the way like I was like really looking into it. Okay, what do I need to do? Because like I'm like very cut, right? Okay, this is what you do though. This is what you need to do next. Okay, and this is why it's happening. So that's really what I needed. Okay, and then very early on, I didn't really understand the impact of this then,
hmm
because I was doing a lot of like research on my own online. This is when like MySpace was a big deal. Then like people were doing a lot of like internet searching very very early on. I mean, the young kids though, they don't know what that is though at this point
right.
anymore. They just don't know what it's like before internet.
This is true.
you know. And then I felt like I couldn't learn on my own anymore. And then I remember asking, I was by myself home at the time, and I was living with my late husband at the time. And I remember asking, okay, guys, like talking to the spirit side, only the good ones. I can't be bothered with the bad ones other than to get rid of them. I asked, okay, what do I do next? Where do I go? Because I knew I wanted to learn more. Because I was like, it's time to learn how to read cards, and like I was taking some online classes at the time, like the books and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, but I knew I couldn't learn on my own by myself anymore. And I had asked that, and I swear, not even 3 days later, my late husband and I got invited to go into a psychic fair in Fall River at the time. Somehow I knew that was my answer.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't explain it, I just knew. And then we went to that fair. We both had a couple of readings. One of them was really profound, though, and they told me, okay, well, this is community. That's not too far from you. 'Cause I was living in Florida at the time. And she told me about this. I'm like, oh. And then about this class, it was like a 4-part class. It was like once a week. And it was on angels. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Let me take it. So I took the class, though, the 4-part class, though, and then I started meeting with these people more. And I realized they was all good people.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started learning about all the different energy healing modalities and like how to better the mediumship. Because like I could talk to the dead, but it's like it was like no rhyme or reason. Like I didn't have a system on like being able to connect with them.
Mm-hmm.
I just knew like who was there, but I didn't always get a description, like a physical description or the personality. So I knew how to work on that to get better about like getting trained better. Like okay, this is how you get enough information on the person.
Mm-hmm.
That's coming to you to hopefully connect with someone that's coming or that's sitting with me. So I did a lot of that though, and I'm very grateful for that though. I still talk to some of the people today, and that's been like I want to say that's like 20 years ago now.
Wow.
Oh, pretty close to 20 years.
Yep. So what would you say your specialty is in the mediumship? What do you get the most?
As far as the messages, you mean?
Yeah.
A lot of, do they know what's going on?
Okay.
Get a lot of that though, and like, okay, what should I do next?
Do you get more visual, like a clairsentient, like in feeling, like clairsentient or a clairvoyant, visual, clairaudient and hearing? How do you connect the most?
The most is visual.
Okay.
The most is visual. I mean, sometimes I do get the hearing, like like I'm
Mm-hmm.
having a conversation with them.
Right, right,
But it's only in my voice, so that was confusing at first.
right.
But then
Right.
I'm like, okay, they're using words I wouldn't normally use. Like,
Mhm.
oh, I know it's them, not me. Even though it feels
Right.
like I'm just talking to myself, even though I know I'm not at this point.
Correct.
So that's a lot of the visual and the auditory with that, though. I used to get a lot of the gut feelings in my stomach at first,
Yeah.
and then it's I kind of go into now just I have that feeling like, okay, I know someone's here.
Right.
So I was able to connect with them through, and just kind of get a sense for them. There's been one, I'll never forget this though. There's been one that was actually putting their hand on the leg of a client. They
Yes.
were very, very firm,
Yes.
and the poor thing, she got a little freaked out. I'm like, nope, it's okay. We're okay. This is a safe place, though. Nothing's gonna happen to you. It's not
Right.
like the movies.
Right.
Right. That doesn't really happen, though, like what happens in the movies.
Right.
So and she was like, you just made me a believer out of you. I never forgot that.
Right.
Because I was looking, I'm
Right.
like, what are you talking about? Because I've been doing this a while at this point, though. I'm like, oh, then it dawned on me. I'm like, oh, okay, sometimes people still need that physical proof.
Right.
Like the logic mind of us, though, because we need that, though, like for the survival, though,
Mhm.
being in the physical, being able to do everyday things. And like she actually got up out of her chair. I'm like, you know what? And she's like, you know what? This is what I needed. Because there was some issues though toward the end of his life.
Mhm.
And it was cut shorter than expected.
Mhm.
There was a lot of I won't get into that though because of the privacy issues though, but
Right.
like there was stuff.
Right.
There was a lot of stuff, and he was not well
Right.
either mentally though. So this just added to a lot of that though.
Right.
So it's just, and I was kind of worried though for them for a little bit. So I checked up on them a couple of days later, which I do once in a while with clients, and they said like, no. It's like it's like you did good though, and like everything went well. It's It's like, oh, okay, all right. And they give me like the best review after, like 2 weeks
Beautiful.
after. I'm like, I wasn't expecting that though, but I'm grateful that, it's like they were okay.
Right.
So it's just, what I find though most though with people is that no matter what your background is, we all worry about the same thing.
Mm.
It's like, okay, it's like, what is, like, will I ever find someone? Even like I even had like someone that was the vice president of a big company come to me. And I mean, I could tell, like, like, with the way he was, like, his energy about him, like, he had a lot of responsibility. And his kids were grown, though, they were doing well, though, the grandkids are doing okay. But he was wondering if he would ever find anyone,
Right.
because he was divorced. I'm like,
Yeah.
man, we all worry about everything, the same thing.
And I love that you're bringing that part of it up so that people can connect with what you're saying. Like, because this program, we do a little less about the mediumship and less about my psychic work and a little bit more about the coaching and how we worry about things and how do we get past these things. And I love bringing this up to show that sometimes spirit will help us get past these things as well. And it keeps our minds open to that. And it's that we get these problems day to day, in and out. We get these lemons, I like to say, tossed at us. And how do we get over the hurdle? Sometimes we need that faith or the connection from the past to be able to get there. And that's how I like to intertwine these two things in present together with it to like the mediumship part of it. So thank you for that, because I think that opens people up a little bit to what we do and why we do it.
Yeah.
Because for me, I'm mostly a clairsentient, so I feel it. I feel what people went through, and it's uncomfortable
It's
at
tough
times.
sometimes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. When all of a sudden you're feeling like a wheelchair, or you're feeling that someone's crippled, or you're feeling heart attack, or you're feeling drug overdose. Oh my gosh, I can't even tell you when I feel this going through my body, and how I'm connecting in with someone that they lost. And then someone says to you, why? Well, let's forget about the why, because we don't really have that why. We're never really going to have that why. And I don't care if that's like in the day to day of why is corporate making me do this at my job? You know what? Just do it. Right? Or why did I lose this person? Because it was their time. But if we can deliver to them that that person is okay,
Yes,
then
that's what's helpful a lot. Though,
that's
too.
what helps people that are left behind.
Yeah, and I get a lot of what if I did this, what if I did that, and that's just part of the commitment, and that's just part of the grief.
But you know what? There's that saying about what if. But there's also a way we can, and I love that you brought that up, because another coach that I follow had brought that same thing up, how what if can also put such a good positive spin on these things. So that what if I did try to do that, so I didn't have that regret for not trying, right?
Yeah.
So what if can actually be such a good way to look at things too. But I see what you're saying. And if it's not about what if I did it differently before, because now we're sitting in regret.
Yeah.
So for all those people that we have what ifs coming through, we're not going to look at that because it's too late. But let's spin them into what if you went for your goals, and what if you took care of that? Maybe that person's spirit is pushing you to go and accomplish those goals, and turn that what if into that positive thing.
What I find a lot though with the souls that are coming through, or the spirit that's coming through, every time though that someone has like a what if, they always tell me it was enough. What you did was enough.
Yes.
And most 90% of the time was more than enough.
Yes.
So
I'd like
that's
to chime in on that one too. A couple of times I've had experiences where the surviving sister or partner, or someone's trying to find out, something went wrong. I'm not going to get into what. And how with certain people, spirit didn't want to connect with it because they didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
But then, like they actually, for me, it's they turn the back. They turn the back on the subject. They turn the back on the situation, and it's not that they're not being kind or engaging, it's that they don't want to talk about it. It's a done deal. And then when the next person came on up, talking not about the same subject, they were open because it was just something that was just heavy on that spirit. And I find that pretty impressive.
Yeah, so sometimes I find, a lot of times that is what happens, but sometimes I find that sometimes the person that's sitting with me, they're not ready to hear it,
Right,
you know.
right.
And I've had clients come to me like 6 months later, and they're ready to hear the why, or like what happened, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And sometimes the body just gets tired,
Right,
you know.
right.
You know, it's like I've seen that a couple of times though too, though, even in my personal life with, you know, with my loved ones, and they had so much more work to do, but they were tired, they were done.
Right.
You know, there's just no more.
And it's about getting that person through the grief and to the acceptance phase
Yeah,
so that they feel like they can move on.
yeah,
And I think a lot of the people that are left behind, sometimes maybe they don't know if they can move on into a relationship, or if they can move forward. They feel like they have to still stay where they are and don't realize they have their own worlds to keep on living.
there was one client though, as we're talking about that though, she was younger, I want to say early 30s, and she felt like she was responsible for someone's passing. Comes to find out though, she wasn't responsible, but she was holding on to the fact that she contributed to it, and
Well, that's a little how do you do. Welcome to Fall River. We got a little bit of like I don't know, we got a couple of cops out there. We got maybe a little bit of an ambulance going on.
Yeah,
So we're just going to go and we're going to go, oh yeah, that was just like the best. And,
yeah.
and we're going to have a couple little fun things right
Yeah.
here. Ding, 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 ding. Back to Kathy.
You know. And she was talking about the person that passed, so like it was not even 6 months ago. And I had asked her like, how long has it been since this person passed? So she had it down to the minute, and it was like 6 or 7 years when this person passed. I'm like, honey, I can't help you anymore.
Right,
You know, it's like you need to face with what happened.
right.
You know, so it's like that's beyond what we can do. You know, as mediums, even though we can do a lot of healing for the person.
Right,
You know, when we got to that point of like learning how to be able to communicate, though, you know, and like get the feelings over, it doesn't overtake us. That does take some time to, you know, kind of get that. And luckily, we can tell the spirit, okay, just back off just enough. Because there's been times though, 'cause I have asthma, so there's been a lot of times though I get people there with breathing problems when they start coughing. And I feel like I'm getting into an asthma attack. I'm like, okay. And I know I'm at a point where I know it's not me. Because when I used to use my inhaler, sometimes it wouldn't work. I'm like, what's wrong?
yeah.
You
Welcome,
know?
clairsentience.
You know, it's a tough one sometimes. So luckily it doesn't happen too often though. But like, you know, just enough to wear it on.
Awesome!
You know, better than that. So it's just that, you know, and there was this one person that just couldn't get past the coughing. You know, the coughing, no. But so I took the client a few times to figure out who we were talking about. It was an older gentleman that was coming in. I'm like, well, you know, they have learned though that when they get persistent, okay, there's something missing here. They're not done talking. Or there's something just the client's not getting, you know, for whatever the reason might be. So, so that took a little while though to learn though, to get to that point though, you know, and like, but you know, patience and you know, continuing to work and make sure that we kept safe. You know, it's like okay, just enough. So it's like what I like to tell people, it's like arms not there with these spirits.
Yeah.
Because you know they mean well, but they forget how overpowering they can get.
That's right.
You know, but you know, thankfully there's boundaries. You can set them up with them. No, that's no problem there at all.
100,
Yeah.
yep. But I do have one question. What keeps you wanting to do it? What keeps you delivering this and giving this gift to other people and helping them through? What is it that makes you
The
keep
peop-
on going?
The ones that keep coming back and telling me that I was right.
Mhm.
And you know, especially with the psychic stuff, where they're just looking for guidance on what to do next, or like you know, when the mediumship part goes and like, well, you know, it's like what you said though kind of helped me through a lot of making sense of what happened.
Right.
So they no longer had those what ifs, or where you know, they yeah, okay, we, you know, sorry, we can't keep holding on to that though.
Hmm.
You know, and it's just the clients that keep coming back to me. He's like, yeah, you helped me through a lot. You know, in half an hour reading with them. You know, it's like I'm telling this, that, the other thing that also saves them hours with therapist, for therapy hours.
Right.
We don't replace therapists.
Correct.
You know, kind of like
But
that young client that I
many
had.
people come
Yeah.
to us in place of it.
Yeah.
And, and that's why we have such a privilege about what we really don't speak about, or we leave it there.
Yeah, because we do have to have a sense of privacy with
That's
people.
right. That's right.
The medical field though has the HIPAA. We don't have that.
No,
But yet
but
there's
if we
still
if we
ethics.
still treat it like it does,
Yeah.
and it's those of us that do that it's just unsaid,
Yeah.
and that way people feel safe with it. But what I was going to ask you is, how do people get in touch with you, and what do you have to offer?
Okay. That's a multi-part question.
I know.
The best way to the easiest way to get hold of me is either through text or email. But you can also call me and leave me a message. I get a lot of spam calls though, so if you don't leave me a voicemail or text me, if I don't pick up because rather than I'm in session or I just can't get to my phone in time, please text me or leave me a voicemail or email me. My cell phone is 401-266-6901. And my email is info, INFO, F like in Frank, dot R as in Robert, EV like in Victor, Kathy, KATHY, at gmail.com. I also have a website, Kathleen with a K, Costa.org. But the easiest way though is either text or email. That's the best way. You can also go to my Facebook page too and send me a message through there. Holistic Practitioner Kathy, and that's Kathy with a K. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me.
And you also have a group on Facebook.
Oh yeah,
The
Spirit Journey.
Yep.
Yeah.
Spirit
Yeah,
Journey.
I love that group though too.
Join on in on
Yeah.
that, and we're on mine. We have the Love, Light, and Touch of Badass group on Facebook as well. So you can always connect with me as well to get a hold of Kathy if that's another way we
Yeah,
can do it as well.
absolutely. Yeah, because we're so connected though at this point. It's like, hey,
And
can
you
help me out?
you offer some classes too.
I do. So I do hold a healing, a Reiki show once a month. You don't have to be tuned to Reiki. You can still join, or if you have another healing modality, that still works. I do have a development circle once a month. That's virtual. It's been virtual since COVID, and I just kept it on because some people come from far. I even have someone from Alaska that joins on the calls or sometimes,
Very nice.
which I thought was kind of cool. So that's also once a month. So I do also teach Reiki. Used to do Reiki mostly now. I do teach a little bit of Karuna. I do teach Monarchy Rites, which is like a shaman type class. And I do teach Sakem, which is it's another energy healing modality, but it's more Egyptian based. It's a very powerful one. It's good more for like emotional trauma, physical trauma. It definitely we can't heal because we're not doctors,
Right.
or nurses, but it definitely helps speed up the healing process.
Well,
Either Reiki or Sakem.
We're definitely going to have to tune in another show on each one.
Yes.
That's so we can talk about each one.
Yeah.
And when I get the other station going on up, we'll definitely piggyback them over there as well,
Yeah,
which
that would
would
be amazing.
really be good, because to be able to make people understand more about it, myself as well, I
Yes.
would love to hear
Yeah.
more about that. So let's definitely set some
Schedule that,
things up
yes.
for that, and we'll get
Absolutely.
more information on that. And that's about the time that we have. So for this one, and
Going
we're
by
going to
quick.
do some more. I know it goes by really, really quick, but I love that we actually can connect in how mediumship and coaching can actually help out, and go hand in hand at knowing when we can deliver, when to push into life and get people back on track, because it sounded like you had to do that
Yes.
with some cases there.
Yes.
So it
Yes.
makes people understand it, and just knowing that you can go and even using mediumship to help you get to your goals, and connecting it through spirit and getting things to actually be able to achieve them. Maybe it helps getting that extra push from that lost loved one that we once had.
Yes, absolutely.
So until next time, as I always say, I love you. I believe in you. Keep it real.